without mercy. But you will be worse. Rip and tear until it is done.
Hey there, this is Mr. Icarus, and welcome to yet another edition of Mod Madness. There's probably a few questions you have right now. The first of which probably being, is this Minecraft? Yes, this is Minecraft. This is more accurately an adventure map by the name of Doomed Demons of the Nether that seeks to recreate significant elements of Doom 2016 within it. You might have to forgive me for a few faux pas when it comes to the description of stuff within Minecraft because, quite frankly, it's been a real long time since I've last played it, and I don't really have a lot of experience when it comes to the nuts and bolts of modding for it. Now, naturally, this is not a one-to-one recreation, although there's a damn good amount of effort going on here in order to bring some recognizable elements of Doom 2016 to life here within Minecraft. For one, this opening tutorial room, very recognizable to the Doom 2016 original. You crack open a gore nest, a bunch of imps spawn, and after that, it's up to you and your trusty combat shotgun to make them all go away. Now, unfortunately, there are a few limitations here. For one, when it comes to movement, probably the most notable absence would be the ability to mantle ledges or edges, and if you're not aware of what that means, it's the act of basically being able to pull your character up the edge of something. The second notable absence here is probably going to disappoint a fair few people, and that is the lack of glory kills. In Doom 2016, if you deal enough damage to an enemy, they'll begin to glow. You can then do a finishing move, which then causes the enemy to die quite gruesomely and explode into health pickups, which forms a really neat element of the gameplay loop. As you might imagine, that's something that may be exceedingly difficult to get working in Minecraft, and as a result, enemies, when you reduce their health to zero, do what they usually do in Minecraft, which is keel over and go poof. Now, a few of you might be wondering how much exactly of Doom 2016 this mod seeks to recreate. Well, it doesn't attempt to do the whole hog, that would be legitimately insane, instead keeping things to a much more reasonable 4-level outlay. That's not to say, however, that there aren't interesting things to discover during the course of this. For one, collectibles are present, even more adorable by virtue of their Minecraft blockiness, 4 to collect in each level, and additionally you also have Praetor Suit tokens, which will upgrade your viability in battle, 2 of those to be found during the course of each level, and as you might imagine just from the sheer scope of this first opening level here, there's plenty of nooks and crannies to poke your nose into. Some will reward you with health, ammunition, you know, the usual stuff, but if you're a little bit more intrepid and go poking, say, in this corner over here, chances are you might discover yourself a little Easter egg, such as this rabbit. Referencing, of course, Doomguy's beloved and long-lost Daisy. F's in chat. But wait, there's more. Nestled elsewhere, you'll also find in each of these levels a lever. Much like Doom 2016, flipping these will cause a secret door to open, and if you track it down, you'll get yet another Easter egg referencing a section of level from the original classic Doom. Now these are just extra adorable for me, mainly because of the solution arrived on to display sprites such as the explosive nukage barrels here. They're just so derpy looking. Not too long into the second level, Demons of the Nether will introduce you to the jump boots, which, much like Doom 2016, will give you the ability to double jump. Here, however, the physics of it are a little weird and took me quite a while to actually get used to. So firstly, the double jump itself is triggered by pressing crouch in midair rather than just hitting the jump a second time. And secondly, the timing of this is actually really important. For example, if you trigger it too late, the double jump will trigger all of the propulsive power of a wet fart and see you utterly whiffing your jump. Instead, you're supposed to trigger it actually quite soon after you hit that initial jump, which, again, is a little awkward considering you're pressing 2 separate keys instead of the same one twice, and considering that the opening section of this level contains a heck of a lot of double jump required platforming, it's safe to say that I was having a less than ideal time. Mercifully, however, there is distraction in the form of the chainsaw, which happily retains its characteristics from Doom 2016. Provided you have the fuel, you can use this to carve into certain enemies and cause them to explode into health pickups. This, however, is only limited to 2 particular enemy types during the course of Demons of the Nether, the imps and the zombies, whereas in Doom 2016, provided you had enough fuel, you could stick that thing into things as big as a Baron of Hell. Still, quite useful to have in the midst of battle here. Doubly so when you consider that the zombie soldiers here are actually much more robust than what you might imagine. For example, they take around 4 full blasts from the combat shotgun in order to bring down, and during that they have ample opportunity to plink away at your health and armor. There's a few notable Easter eggs to be found during the course of this level. The lever here will take you to the requisite secret room, but in terms of more devious Easter eggs, woe betide the poor soul that decides it's a good idea to scan this particular QR code. Go on, do it. I dare you. A few other fun additions pepper the remainder of this level. You get your first proper introduction to a Kako demon, which is hilariously cuboid, and somewhat ironically features quite the dodgy hitbox. But hey, at the very least, you can still feed them grenades. There's some fun bits of level design, such as this return trip down a corridor revealing a platform that'll grant you further access to potential collectibles. The less said about me falling down this pit and having to climb all the way back up, the better, and the level caps itself off with an honest-to-God boss fight against, of all things, a Pinky. So for reference, the Pinky in Doom 2016 is a relatively common enemy type that requires a particular kind of tactic in order to defeat. It's relatively well armored to the front, and the best way to take it down is to evade its charge, get around the back of it, and then shoot it in the wobbly bits. Now, that, I imagine, is an absolute bugger to try and recreate in Minecraft. So this is the compromise. Instead of being heavily armored to the front, it is straight up chunky all the way around. It also has 4 legs instead of 2. That is mildly strange to me, knowing what the Pinky is like, but it also relentlessly pursues you throughout the arena. So you've still got that element of aggression. It still feels like the Pinky in spirit, and I love the fact that you can gain yourself a little bit of space between yourself and it using either the jump pads or of course the portals littered around the edge of the arena. Glad they decided to make this a one-off boss fight, though. I can imagine that kind of enemy getting really tiresome to fight in successive encounters, especially when you're lacking the kind of toolkit that Doom 2016 grants you in order to deal with them. Next up, we have the Foundry, which, in my opinion, is where Demons of the Nether really starts to heat up. I'm sorry, that was a terrible pun. But in my defense, it is the level where Demons of the Nether decides it's going to throw pretty much every other weapon in the mod into your arsenal. It's also notable for the fact that the Foundry is probably one of the more freeform levels in terms of progression here in Demons of the Nether, mirroring the fact that the same is essentially true of its Doom 2016 counterpart. The main objective here is to activate the cooling turbines by virtue of making your way around the entire facility, taking out varied gore nests. But in terms of which one you need to tackle first, it is largely up to you. The main rule, of course, being don't fall in the lava. It's very hard to recover from that. As it happens, a fresh clutch of enemies also turns up to the party during the course of the Foundry. We get introduced to the Archwall, which hilariously in its opening appearance did not a lot of much, and of course, there is the Revenant. Not just any old Revenant, mind you, the Doot Revenant. My favorite kind of Revenant, and boy, the noise it makes before it fires a salvo of missiles is just, oh, chef's kiss. Now, this is not the default option, by the way. This is a small element of customization you can engage in during the setup for this mod, and that also includes having the default Doom 2016 plasma gun skin, or for cultured people such as myself, the classic plasma gun skin. Wasn't kidding about this level granting you access to practically every other weapon in the mod, by the way, because hey-ho, it's a BFG, and yes, it does indeed make everything commit die. Granted, it doesn't produce quite as much visual fireworks as the Doom 2016 version, but regardless, I will take your entire stock. After cleaning up the riffraff by eliminating all the gore nests and revving up the cooling turbines, you'll finally have access to the back part of the Foundry, where there's a big old super gore nest, and wouldn't you know it, it still has an active connection to the Nether dimension. But before you can step on through, there's just one small thing you're gonna have to deal with. That's right, it's Boss O'Clock, and for those of you wondering what other enemies in the Doom 2016 roster might appear, well, here you go. This is the Nether Knight, a spin on, of course, the Hell Knight, and if I'm not mistaken, using the Golem enemy from Minecraft as its base. See, I do know a few things about Minecraft, not much, but a few. So this one has a little bit more backup in comparison to the Pinky boss fight, and a little bit more variety in its attacks. It has a ground pound attack, which will produce a pretty significant radius of flame, and of course it will spend most of its time sprinting in your general direction, attempting to thwack you in the face. As you can see, shrugs off BFG shots like water off a duck's back, and is, yep, an absolute damage tank. So you're going to be spending a fair while running away from this thing, managing to keep at least a reasonable amount of distance, and just making sure you stock up on that ammo, which helpfully can be replenished, what with fresh enemies spawning in periodically during the course of the fight. So rev up that chainsaw if you need it, stock up on the boom boom, and revel in the fact that halfway through this fight, the skin starts peeling off this thing's face, which is just metal as all heck. Welcome to the Nether. Surprisingly enough, the final destination of Demons of the Nether. Didn't see that coming at all. But after a brief traipse through its opening sections, you arrive at its first arena. And I've got to say, this does a great job of capturing the vibe of those hell levels from Doom 2016, down to the more vast nature of the arenas and just the general additional chaos. This really does just stop pissing about at this point and just says, have fun. That said, after this, it does introduce one more enemy type, and that is the Lost Soul. Now, personally, I'm not a fan of them, especially in Doom 2016. They had a bad habit of emitting this utterly ear-piercing scream, and then just careening kamikaze style directly into your face. They still do that here, but they're a lot easier, in my opinion, to deal with, and a lot less prone to making your eardrums bleed. A little bit more platforming, which at this point I was getting much more used to, and we are in quite possibly my favorite visual of this entire level, which is a riff on Titan's Realm from Doom 2016. Just seeing it recreated here is genuinely a really cool sight. I love the attention to detail here. And much like that original version of the level, you proceed by careening down its gullet into the next arena. Final addition to the roster pops into the fray here, which is the Nether Razer. The regular name from Doom 2016 is the Hell Razer, and they're notable for having a big old laser arm that shoots lasers, and that's it. That's the thing. Honestly, it's a shame that they didn't really appear in Doom Eternal. I feel like there's potential there. You got all those movement mechanics, the dashing, the dodging, the grapple hooking. Why not throw lasers into the mix? Hashtag bring back Hellraisers. Weaponry-wise, there is one final surprise to be acquired here during the course of the Nether, and that is, of course, the Crucible. But before you can grab it, you're gonna have to fight for it. Get another big ol' arena, big ol' chunky encounter, and once you're done, you can pick up the sword and go hog wild with it. For a very short period of time. You see, the Crucible functions kind of like how it does in Doom Eternal, which is kind of token-based. It will absolutely ruin any standard enemy in one hit in front of you, but that uses a charge, and you don't get all that many charges, so just make sure you're using it on something worthwhile, I guess. Oh, and just in case you were wondering what I consider worthwhile, Archwalls, yes, top priority, sod off. After a fair bit of hefty battling, this last level finally deposits you in its ultimate boss encounter. What could it possibly be, you wonder? Well, of course, it's the Icon of Sin. Yeah, we're skipping the Spider Mastermind here. We don't have time for any of that business. Nah, we're skipping to the big kahuna. Honestly impressed with this fight. Genuinely impressed. Didn't expect it to be pulled off, and oh, it just does everything you want in a boss fight. It's got elements that force you to keep on the move throughout the arena despite the boss itself being largely stationary. It filters in smaller opponents for you to skirmish with during the process of whittling down its health, and of course, should you run out of ammunition, you've got those lesser types that you can mince with the chainsaw in order to top yourself back up. Not so sure about the usefulness of the Crucible charges littered around here. I guess it's fine for taking down the likes of Revenant, but honestly I didn't actually really get all that much use out of it. It's probably the only aspect of this fight that I actually found disappointing, because I was expecting the Crucible to actually come into play when it came to damaging the Icon of Sin itself, because if I'm not mistaken, the entire point of having a Crucible in Doom Eternal was that eventually you had to jam the thing into its skull in order to finally finish it off. Regardless, had a lot of fun during the course of this fight. I just really enjoyed seeing the Icon of Sin in motion. The fact that its head would track you as you move around the arena, occasionally throw a flame attack at you, and bring its fists down to smash the ground and summon additional enemies to its aid. I also love the fact that, much like the Nether Knight, once you get the health down low enough, it starts to degrade, the skin starts to peel, you see that visible damage. And it's just a great way of making you feel, even with a relatively chunky health bar, that you're making some headway, that you're making progress. But as with all things that stand before the Doomslayer, the Icon of Sin eventually falls. All that's left to do after that is head on back through to the Foundry and destroy the portal in the Doomslayer's own inimitable way. And if anything, this final cutscene here just, in my opinion, cements that Doomed Demons of the Nether gets it, understands the vibe of the Doomslayer. And overall, this is a mod that honestly does channel Doom 2016 in spirit, even if it's having to make compromises in order to bring it to life.